Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Carl. I am your host, Carl Zoellner, one of the attorneys with Anderson Business Advisors. And today I wanted to touch on a subject that a lot of clients out there are experiencing currently, and that's some things to do with promissory notes. So, promissory note is basically the note that it basically ends up being a contract that you draft that talks about the different pieces of an overall loan agreement. And with the loan agreement, normally what you have is a sum, a date when it's due, and whatever interest or gain is going to be associated with that loan. Most commonly, people are familiar with, of course, mortgages, things like that. Mortgages and deeds of trust are what secures that loan. The document that describes the loan is what's referred to as that promissory note. So when it comes to lending, there's two pieces that are crucial to it. The two pieces are promissory note and security interest, which is that mortgage or deed of trust. The mortgage or deed of trust is dictated by the state. Some states only accept mortgages to be filed against the real estate to secure the loan. Some only accept deeds of trust. Most actually accept kind of both forms. But yeah, ultimately, you can always just sort of Google your state and figure it out. So talking a little bit more about a couple different types of loan to keep an eye out for, because most folks just don't work with it enough to be familiar with it. But there's all sorts of different types of loans. So most common is a loan with a percentage of interest rate return. So just kind of a simple. And if you're a platinum client, we actually have a document in the portal you can access. It's just called a simple promissory note. And like I said, it basically just has those key terms involved. Like I said, date, interest rate, amount of the loan, and sort of, like I said, the overall due date as well. And that way you have an enforceable contract should you need to get a judgment on the note and foreclose on it. God forbid that happens to any of you. I hope it doesn't, but it happens probably more than you think it does. And I can tell you that from working with our platinum clients for years and years and years, because there's a lot of sort of sketchy advice out there. Another cool type of promissory note that's out there is called a participating note. So if you're using a participating note, that basically means it's drafted to say that you actually get a percentage of the profit. So it's not technical ownership. So you're not really taking on any liability, which is a great feature of lending, because lending, you're not really taking on liability. You're just taking on the risk of lending the money. So yeah, ultimately lending the money, but you get a percentage of the profit back instead of an interest rate. So that's taxable, of course, but it's just another way to do a promissory note that a lot of folks are not familiar with. So just be aware. And that type of promissory note is also in the platinum portal as well for our platinum clients. And if you're asking, how do I become a platinum client? That's a logical question because there's so many benefits involved with it. But the idea would be is you have a consultation. So request one of the free consults we offer. And any advisor that you meet with will be happy to take you through the benefits and how most of our clients are utilizing Platinum, because it is a great service and a heck of a piece of preventative medicine that has kept a lot of clients out of trouble, especially when it comes to one of the services involved with document reviews and things like that. You can actually fill out your documents and we'll take a look at them as well and comment on them if there's issues or if you have specific questions. So yeah, I would just say, like I said, number one, we're talking promissory notes. There is basically a whole folder full of different ones within the Platinum portal for different purposes and different uses. If you need help getting pointed in that direction as a Platinum client, it's already baked in. You could just go to the knowledge room in the Platinum portal at this point. One of the attorneys would be happy to point you to the correct document. And probably even just go ahead and send it on over to you. And that way you can start working on it. And then ultimately, as I mentioned, I tell my clients, if you still have questions, ask specific questions, but you're welcome to submit it for document review as well. So there is as you can tell just by my general description on this one piece, you can tell that there's some pretty substantial benefit to being a Platinum client. So another piece when we start to, like I said, the basic summary for promissory notes and investing with promissory notes or investing, using OPP, other people's property or other people's money in this scenario is basically The promissory note is key one. Key two is going to be that security interest. So if you're a lender, make sure you're taking a security interest, especially if you're lending on a property. Like you say, if you're a private money lender on a flip, make sure you're putting a lien on that property. So if for some reason that loan is not being paid, you have the ability to foreclose on it, just like any other professional lender would be able to. But the security interest is key. Otherwise, you have to take an additional costly step of actually going through court, getting a judgment on the note, and then having to go through sort of the closure process. And ultimately, it just becomes much more expensive than it needs to be if you just do it right from the beginning. Another piece going along with sort of this promissory note video is I'd like to talk just for a second about the friendly lien. We like friendly liens as part of an overall smokescreen strategy as well. You can encumber your personal residence or your investment properties by basically creating that promissory note, as well as that deed of trust or mortgage against those properties as well. And then ultimately, it looks much less appealing to a predatory plaintiff or plaintiff's attorney to see a property with almost no equity in it, because the lender would get paid first in that scenario. If you're talking sort of just about traditional lending practices. So the idea is they couldn't tell that you own that sort of thing. So a Wyoming entity is great for that as well because of the anonymity involved. And then I'll also create a video of why Wyoming's anonymity is so strong. So, but ultimately, yeah, the friendly lien scenario is the same thing we just talked about. It is a loan and it is a security interest filed against your properties, your own properties. So you still have control of them. But the idea is that it's stripping the equity out of the property. So it looks far less appealing should something, God forbid, say anybody got in a car accident, something like that. You wouldn't now when if those assets become relevant, most times they're not even relevant to the case, but if they do become relevant, then ultimately it just looks like there's not much there and provides you some additional leverage in your negotiating for settlement. And so usually what it relates to or comes down to is somehow pennies on the dollar, which is ultimately a win for most people, especially if you're not an attorney and you're not getting paid whether you win or lose. So ultimately, yeah, promissory notes, remember those two pieces and you'll keep your tail out of the ringer. So yeah, promissory note, number one. Number two, security interest to secure that note if you're the lender. If you're the borrower, then that's not really your responsibility to secure your lender. But if you wanted to do them a solid, you could certainly expose them to that or share this video with them and they will know about it. Ultimately, if you're my client, I'll advise you for what's best for you. The other party to the agreement or negotiation can advise their professional. But that's another, like I mentioned as well, that's a great benefit of Platinum is we can have that conversation and it's not billable to you hourly. So like I always say, please remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend if it's relevant for you. And then ultimately we'll just keep making free content until something's interesting enough for you to share with everybody. So until next time, thank you for joining me for Coffee with Carl, and we'll catch you on the next one.